Thank you. This is the last and the least country. So we have heard from a big and rich country, then we heard from bigger and richer, then we heard from small and rich, and we are small, non-rich, if you want to. I almost feel it like non-Hodgkin or non-small cell carcinoma. And you can add post-communist, post-war, Balkan country. So it's difficult to compare with the richer countries. So I've structured my report as a table because we got questions that we had to answer for each country. So I will just go quickly through this. So as far as structures are, Croatia is smaller than Norway. We have a small GDP, although we are non-OECD high-income country. This is according to the available statistical sources in the country. This is our GDP per capita, not per capita, GDP and expenditures on research and development. I have recalculated all of these to the US dollars in 2015 because that was the World Bank assessment. We spend less than 0.79% on research. Today figures go to 7 or below 0.7%. And we don't have information. As you know, we're a post-communist country and the private sector is not developing that much, especially charity funding, so the information was not available on these. We have over 9,000 researchers as registered because the registration of researchers is mandatory for them to get any funding or to be included in any of the higher or research activities. And we define them as people who have the relevant degrees, and they are mostly fully employed, and some are on contract or part-time. And we have over 100 higher education institutions. We have 25 public scientific institutes and other legal entities, you know, libraries, all kinds of institutes, hospitals and healthcare centers that also take part in research. As far as processes go, we have a strategy for education, science and technology of the Parliamentary Republic of Croatia. This is something that is regularly being published and created. I'm not sure whether ordinary or researchers read it. We have a national body for research integrity. It is the National Committee for Ethics in Research and Higher Education. It's appointed by the Parliament and it's part of the law because in the law on research and higher education, it's this committee that has kind of not oversight role, but advisory role about possible cases of misconduct and especially tasked with the promotion of research integrity. And we have this national body, but we also have research and higher education institutions that have to have their own bodies. And also there are professional bodies such as Physician Chamber in Croatia, which is also responsible for the regulation of ethics aspects of profession. And we were, this body, National Body for Research Integrity, was instituted in 2007, and at that time we were kind of at the frontiers, and this is one of the correspondence in Nature that says that Croatia's standards for integrity are unusual in much of the Europe, so we were proud that we were following the leadership of Scandinavian countries. About environment, it's not known. I don't think that maybe a few people that I know, at least in biomedical field, that do research in research integrity in a few of the universities in Croatia. We don't know how many postdoctoral students get paid position, because if you're not within the educational system, it's very difficult to follow this. PhD fellowships are not existent because it's a part of the employment other than doing PhD. The percentages of grant success are also not really very clear, and for what I could get from the report of our major funder, which is the National Science Foundation, Croatian National Science Foundation, it's about 30%, and the budget varies, and the figure that I had last was about 100 million kunas, which is about 12 million euros. All of these questions that we were asked about other environment and structures. So we do have a national code, and the universities and research institutions are called upon to, they are not required, they're not mandated to implement this, but if they accept this code, they have to ensure that it's fully implemented. We don't have training required, except we have to have training for laboratory work on laboratory animals, so if use of animals in research. What institutions are the primary places where the allegations of misconduct are held and resolved, and the Committee for Ethics, the national body, has advisory role, but according to the law, which probably is going to be changed, they could start the process of taking away somebody's degree or PhD, and then also a degree if misconduct is found. It's not known what is the cooperation between institutions, so we don't have any data on that. In regulations addressed to research integrity, the protection of whistleblowers is not addressed, and there is no mandate for establishing research integrity officers at institutions. Institutions have ethics bodies, they may have a student's ombudsman, but they would not have a dedicated research integrity person. We don't know, and there are no funding specifically for research misconduct. There are no annual meetings. These were all the questions that we had to answer, so I'm showing them to see that some of them are very difficult to answer. It's also about the registration of clinical trials. We are following the EU directive, and we have had, it's included in the bylaw, in the ordinance on clinical trials and good clinical practice, but only for medications, so for drugs, but not for medical devices. The law stipulates that we have to have a list of approved clinical trials and also trial registry, which we don't. I mean, we're mandated by our own bylaws from 2010, but we still don't have it. And we don't have any policies on open and accessible data. About outcomes, incentive for the institutions or individuals or both based on research outputs. It is a part of accreditation procedure for institutions and also part of financing of institutions annually from the ministry. Is research integrity part of institutional quality assessment? It is one question. I remember when we recently had a re-accreditation of our medical school, one of the questions from the accreditation board, which was all international, was whether we have a research integrity ombudsman or research ombudsman, and I don't think that institutions have such bodies there. Is the research impact assessment and translation of research finding to the community? Yes, because of the accreditation procedure mostly. The public perception of research integrity in their country, what is their trust in science? I must say low. Our current Minister of Science is accused of plagiarism. The national body for ethics was politically instrumentalized into this fight about it's all about politics and not really about knowledge and what was really right. Nobody's looking at the data, but everybody is having political fights fought over this, which doesn't really go well with the public. Is research integrity discussed in the lay press? Only negative terms, only when we have a scandal. Rewards for collaborative science and incentive for networks. We have centers of excellence, and we do follow kind of European movement into this, but it's still not well developed. Efforts to increase value of research to society and reduce wasteful research. This is obviously waste in research and reward question. Not really, no, because there is a lot of redundancy and there is not much of the efficiency analysis or evidence. What are the disincentives? Again, you know, coming from a post-communist country, cheating is very common. I'm sure that it's all over the world, but we have common cheating among students, corruption in academia, and we don't have much resources for research integrity, at least official or systematic. So that's all from me, and thank you.